All right, team. Welcome to week 3 again. We've already started week 3. It's day 19 in our 30-day journey towards building the habit of persistence. And at the end of last week, I introduced you to the 4 steps to building the habit of persistence. And today, what we're going to focus in on is the first step of building the habit of persistence. Do you remember what the first step was? If you didn't, that's okay. Let's do a quick recap of the 4 steps to building the habit of persistence. The first step is to decide. That's the very first thing we need to do. If we're going to be persistent, we got to decide, what are we going to be persistent about? We've got to pick a goal. We got to pick a worthy goal. We got to pick something that fires us up. Because if you don't, if you're not really fired up about this thing, then you're more than likely not going to persist. So you got to pick something that you really, really want, okay? So we got to decide what you want. The second step then is to make a plan. How am I actually going to close the gap between where I am and where I want to be? And this is essentially our system, right? So like James Clear says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our system. So what's our plan? And a really important point here that I don't think I made in the last video is that you don't need to have it all figured out yet. You don't need to have a plan for the next 10 years. You don't need to have a plan for the next year. Actually, that's going to keep you frozen. And it's not going to be a very effective way to go about living your life. Really, you want to just be able to know at least the next step. And then you have a system in place that allows you to continue to check in and decide what's the next right step here. Okay, so we can talk more about that in a future video because this video really is all about step number 1, deciding. But I'm just going to recap really quickly the 4 steps to building the habit of persistence. So again, decide, what do you want? Number 2, if you're going to stay persistent, you got to have a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, you're not going to take consistent action. So you got to have a plan. And without consistent action, you're not going to persevere. You're not going to be persistent. Number 3, step 3, close off your mind to all negativity, all negative influences, all discouraging influences. Get those out of your mind. Get those out of your life. We're talking people. We're talking social media. We're talking news. We're talking internal dialogue, the things you say to yourself. The 4th step to building the habit of persistence is to build your team. You need to have an alliance. You need 2 or 3 people in your world that are encouraging you to take action on the thing that you said mattered to you, to take action on the plan that you've put out in front of yourself. So we want to build our team. Teamwork makes the dream work. So those are the 4 steps. And our focus today in our conversation is to just get you thinking about how to decide or how to create goals, how to create visions, things like that. It's just a conversation about it. The real truth to this idea of deciding what to decide is a skill that needs to be developed. We aren't taught how to make decisions from a very young age. We're not taught really how to pick goals that are worthwhile and meaningful to us. We're taught how to follow rules, really. So this is a skill to develop. So if you're not good at picking goals or following through on goals, don't worry about it. You'll get better at it. So those are the 4 steps of building the habit of persistence. Our goal today is just to be thinking about how to pick what you want to work on. So this first part here is I'm going to share with you 5 things to think about when it comes to picking goals, when it comes to deciding on what you want to go all in on. That's the first step of persistence. So how are you going to pick it? Well, let's take a look here. The first thing we're going to talk about is the Bible, science, and life. What does the Bible tell us? What does science tell us? And what does life tell us about goals? Well, the Bible says, and some of you can probably help me out with where this comes from in the Bible, but without a vision, the people will perish. Without a vision, the people will perish, right? So if you're not going to perish, if you're going to persevere, you need to have a vision. You need to decide what you're moving towards. So we need to have a vision for our life 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or we will literally die. We will feel like we're dying. We won't have a vision to move towards. So that's the first thing I want to introduce you to or to think about when it comes to goals is that the Bible teaches us without a vision, people will perish. So what's your vision? Do you have a vision for yourself? The second aspect of this is what science says about having goals. And what science says is that happy people have projects. Happy people have goals. They have some sort of target in mind. We are literally like teleological beings. We like to make progress towards things. We like to grow. We like to evolve. And when you have goals, goals force you to grow, to evolve, to make progress. And so what science has found is that people who are happy, they have goals in mind. They have projects that they're working towards. So we want to be thinking about that. Also, life teaches us that goals are important. Just think back to any point in your life when you have felt thoroughly engaged with your life, when you have felt alive when you got up first thing in the morning, when you were excited about going to work. More than likely, there was a goal or project that you were working on. Maybe you kicked off a new project at work that your team was super excited about moving through. Maybe you were planning a family trip that included a whole bunch of people, and that was exciting to you. And so you were super engaged with the process. Maybe you had a goal of planning a wedding for yourself or someone you love. Maybe you were planning to do a marathon and you were excited about getting up in the morning and going for a workout. More than likely, if there was a time in your life where you felt engaged and fired up about life, you were clear about a particular goal and you were going after it. So one thing I want you to think about when it comes to perseverance and deciding on goals is just to keep in mind that people with goals are happier. And if we truly want to live and lead our most authentic, most awesome, kick-ass life, we got to start thinking about having goals. So that's one thing I want you to think about. The second thing is that there's literally no hope without goals. There's literally no hope without goals. So one thing that's really important to point out here is that hope is a real thing that matters to our happiness. Over at Penn State, Martin Seligman's been doing tons of research on human flourishment. And flourishment for him is about really happiness. You know, when we are feeling a deep sense of flourishment in our lives, we're feeling engaged, we're feeling fulfilled, that's flourishment. And he says that there are 3 of these kind of characteristics, these virtues that fall at the top of people who are truly flourishing. People who are flourishing, they have hope, they have zest, and they have grateful hearts. These 3 virtues are at the top of the list for people who are feeling a deep sense of flourishment in their lives. They're grateful, they have a certain amount of zest, energy that they're bringing to life, and they have hope. Well, just so happens that hope, there's a science to hope, and there's 3 aspects to hope. And the very first aspect to hope, guess what it is? Goals. Hopeful people have goals. They literally have to have something to move forward towards. So hope is really believing that the future is going to be better than the present. And the science of hope says there's 3 aspects. The first one is goal. There's got to be a target, something they're moving towards. The second aspect of hope is they have to believe in their ability to make that goal come true. It doesn't mean that they're going to be perfect. It doesn't mean they have all the skills right now or all the resources right now, but they believe in their ability to figure it out. They believe in their resourcefulness. They believe in themselves enough and life enough that they know they can figure out how to close the gap between where they are and where they want to be. Now, in the science of hope, they call that agency, that people with hope have a deep sense of agency, a belief in their ability to do it. So step 1 for hope, got to have a goal. Step 2, agency. And the third step for hope is they've got to be willing or have the willpower to take multiple pathways to get there, to close the gap from where they are and where they want to be. So they've got to be willing to take different pathways. And this is part of the plan. This is part of planning when it comes to building the habit of perseverance and being able to persist. So there is no hope without goals, literally. If you want to feel a deep sense of flourishment in your life, if you want to be happy, you got to have hope. And hope requires that you have goals that you believe you can achieve and you're willing to take multiple pathways to get there. That's the second thing I want you to think about. The third thing I want us to think about is that not all goals are created equal, but any goal can be a worthy, noble goal. Not all goals are created equal, but any goal can be a worthy, noble goal. And what I mean by that is that there are certainly goals that just naturally, innately make us more fired up. So we want goals, the best kind of goals out there are the ones that are self-directed, that we've chosen for ourselves, That they're not things that we think we should do or we have to do or someone else told us would be a good idea for us to do. They're completely autonomous. They're self-directed. These are things I want to do. Those are going to be the best kind of goals to create, are the ones that are self-directed. Another thing we want to be thinking about when it comes to the quality of a good goal is that they are really focused on internal motivators versus external motivators. Most goals that are the most fulfilling have a couple different aspects. One is they're deeply meaningful to us. They're personally meaningful to us. They're important. One of the ways I like to think about this is Michael Bungay Steiner. He described it in three different aspects. He says we want to have goals that are important, which means they're important in the sense that they're going to have a positive impact on the lives of others. They're important. The second aspect is we want them to be exciting. So we want them to have a burning desire. We want them to inspire us a bit. We want to feel excited about accomplishing this goal. And the third piece is that we want it to be a little bit daunting. Not too much, but a little bit daunting. So again, the three that Michael Bungay Steiner share is we want them to be exciting. We're passionate about it. We want them to be important, meaning they're meaningful to ourselves and to the people around us and to the bigger world at large. And third, they need to be daunting. They need to be a little challenging, but they also need to be doable. Because goals that we don't think we can achieve, that are super, super hard, we're just not going to be able to sustain it. And goals that are a little bit boring or below our skill level, they don't really challenge us. We are going to be bored and we're not going to persist either. We're just going to be too bored. We're not going to want to go do it. So not all goals are created equal. But any goal can be a worthy, noble goal. So you might look at like a weight loss goal or a running goal, and it's really, it's not that meaningful to the world and it's not that big of a deal. You may not be that excited about it, but any goal that you follow through on is actually a very worthy, noble goal because it challenges you to grow your habit of perseverance. It challenges you to challenge your mindset. It challenges you to develop new skills, and it just builds that muscle of perseverance. So any goal can actually be a worthy, noble goal. Any goal that we follow through on is going to help increase our capacity for taking on more goals. It's going to increase our confidence in our ability to follow through on goals. It's going to challenge us to develop new relationships, new skills, new mindsets, new confidence, new self-esteem, new practices and habits, all of that stuff. So any goal that challenges you to grow, to evolve, to become a better version of yourself, a higher version of yourself, a more capable version of yourself is a worthy goal. But the ones that are the best are the ones that are actually created by you. They're important to you. They're exciting to you, and they challenge you just beyond your kind of comfort level there. So I want you to think about that, which leads us then, I already kind of touched on this a little bit, but the fourth idea to think about here when it comes to goal setting is to really create what is called Goldilocks goals. And so what we want to do is we think like, maybe I want to try that out. Maybe that's a good goal for me, or that vision that I'm leaning into. What we want to do is we want to try them on for size. Meaning we're going to go maybe test them out with ourselves of like saying them out loud to people, testing them out with other people in our lives. But we're going to try them on for size the same way, Goldilocks goes into the bears' house and she tries the porridge and she tries the beds and all of that stuff. We want to try on these goals for size, and we want to make sure that they're not too hot, they're not too cold, they're just right. We want to make sure they're not too big, they're not too small, they're just right for us, right? So we want to create Goldilocks goals for ourselves. Not too big, not too small, not too much pressure, but not little pressure. We want enough pressure to keep us in the game and excited about making progress. So Goldilocks goals is another thing to think about. And the fifth thing I want us to think about when it comes to picking goals, deciding on goals, is that goals come in different shapes and sizes. And we'll go a little bit deeper here to think about these things. And one way to think about goals is we've got short-term goals, we've got long-term goals. So short-term is like this week, this month, the next 3 months, that's kind of a short-term goal. Longer-term goals, we're looking at 1, 3, 5, 10 years out. So we want to have both, actually. Both are very, very helpful. We want our short-term goals to line up with our long-term goals. Both are important. But we want to be able to chunk down those long-term goals so we're more likely to stay in the game, you know? Another thing to think about with goals is some goals are specific and some goals are general, and both have their purpose. So a general goal might be like, I just want to be and become my best self. Like that's a general goal. I want to feel I want to feel happier. I want to feel more fulfilled. Those are kind of general goals. I want to be healthy. Those are general goals. And those are fine because it gives us direction. But if we really want the magic to happen, we need to create some specific goals. But we can start with at least general goals. And as we start moving through the plan and moving through the process towards that direction, towards that general goal, we're going to start to discover specific goals. We're going to start to discover skill gaps or confidence gaps or knowledge gaps or habit gaps. And then we're going to be able to become more specific. And again, we want our specific goals to line up with our general goals and vice versa. Another thing to think about here, which has been really crucial for me this last 12 months or so, is I used to really just focus on like quantity goals, like lose a certain amount of pounds or create a certain level of revenue in my business, or attract a certain amount of people on my client roster. Like these are quantity goals, to put out a certain number of videos, to have a certain number of views. Like these are quantity goals, which is great. Quantity goals are important. But the part that I was missing was quality goals. How do I want to feel in pursuit of those quantity goals? Right? So how do I want to feel? So instead of just building a uber successful business, I want to build a business that I absolutely freaking love to run. I want to build a business in a way that feels effortlessly and joyfully done. So that's a quality goal. So as I'm checking in with myself, I'm not just looking at the measurement of quantity in numbers, but I'm looking at the quality of how often this week did I feel that sense of effortlessness and ease and joy in the journey. So those are some things to maybe think about when it comes to goals. Are these 5 things to think about? The Bible, science, life tells us that happy people have goals. If you want to have goals, if you want to be happy, you got to have goals. And we're talking about building the habit of perseverance here. And the first step to building the habit of perseverance is to decide what you want. Essentially, create a vision, create a goal. And that's going to make you happy too. So there's lots of reasons to decide, to make decisions around what's your vision going to be for life, your long-term, your short-term. And also, science there tells us that happy people have goals. And life, just when we look back on our life, when we have felt the happiest and most engaged, more than likely there was a goal that was being pursued in that particular case. And it probably wasn't easy, right? There's no hope without goals. There's 3 aspects to hope. So if we want to be hope and have that deep sense of flourishment, we need to have goals. Not all goals are created equal, but any goal can be a worthy goal that we follow through on. Builds confidence, builds character, builds skills, resourcefulness, all of that. We want to shoot for Goldilocks goals. And goals come in different shapes and sizes. Just some things to think about when you're deciding to decide on what you want to pursue. Next up, activities. So those are some things to think about. Now, how do we actually pick a vision? How do we decide on a particular goal? Well, here are a couple activities to consider. This month-long program isn't about goals. We could actually do a whole month on goals. This is just an introduction to it. So I want to encourage you to any one of these that I share with you. If you feel inspired, go check it out. Just search the Google. The Google will give you some answers. But these are some ones that have been helpful for me in my own life and also with the lives of my clients. So one of them is a best possible selves diary. And this is science-based. And what you do is you sit down and you imagine yourself 5 years out. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. everything has gone well. You've achieved some goals, you got a little lucky, you put in the work, you built the relationships, all that stuff, and things have just worked out. What's the best possible self-diary entry there? 5 years from now, how old will you be? What year is it? How old will your kids be? How old will your significant other be? This is a great way to imagine the best possible outcome for you. You work hard, you get a little lucky. What have you achieved? What do your finances look like? What does your lifestyle look like? What does your health and fitness look like? What does your relationship with the most important people in your life look like? But you can just go do a Google search. But this is a journal activity. And it's one of those ones that you want to come back to again and again and again. Because the more you connect with yourself and your imagination, the more clarity you're going to get. So each version is going to get more and more clear each time you do it. And I do this type of stuff all of the freaking time. And the more I do it, the more I connect to myself and use my imagination, the more courage I get and the bigger my commitment gets. Back to the 3 C's. So this is one possible activity you could Google and figure out. You can also message me and I can give you more details on it. But another one is the Wheel of Life activity. Now this one has been around for a long, long time. And it's a great way to kind of decipher when you don't have a clue where to begin. The Wheel of Life can help because it pinpoints like 7 particular areas that over the years people have identified as key areas in your life that contribute to a life well lived. And it's things like your finances, your career, your most intimate relationship, your friends and family, let's see here, your lifestyle, your personal development goals, and your spiritual goals, things like that. And what you do is you assess on a scale of 0 to 10. And you can go online and you can find lots of activities around the Wheel of Life. But you assess on a scale of 0 to 10, how satisfied am I in this particular area? That's the first question you ask yourself. And you assess, in my finances, how satisfied am I? 0 to 10. Then the second question is, what is working well? So whatever you voted there, whatever you put down as your assessment, let's say you put your finances at a 7 and you're like, what's going well is like my income's really pretty good right now. And if you then move on to the third question, it's for this to be a 10, to be a whole fuck yeah, my life is awesome with my finances. I'm completely satisfied. What would need to happen? Then maybe through that activity, you identify a couple different things, but then you look at those things again and you say, which one of these is the most important now? And it's like, well, I really want to get my retirement bucket to a higher level. I really want to see if I could be doing more for investment wise. And so then you would know your finance on the Wheel of Life. Then you would go through and you do the next one. Maybe it's your most intimate relationship. Maybe it's your marriage or with your partner or something like that. And you assess it. How satisfied am I? What's working? You identify the second question. Why did I rate it that way? What was positive about it? What's working? And then third, what would take this to a level 10? You go through all these 7 different aspects of your life through the assessment. You assess the Wheel of Life and you haven't made a decision yet what you're going to work on. You haven't yet. Okay. You're just assessing. And then once you've assessed, you look back at it and you say to yourself, which one of these, if I was to dedicate time and energy to that particular one, would have the biggest, most positive impact on all the other areas? That's how you decide on one area. You want that one that you're working on to help all of the other aspects of your life. So the Wheel of Life is one activity to consider if you're struggling to decide on what your one thing is. Another thing that has really saved me is the Big 3. The Big 3 is an idea I picked up from Brian Johnson, and the basic theory is this. If you want to live a great life, there are really 2 essential needs. 2 essential needs. One is you got to be in service to others. You've got to be contributing to others in a meaningful way. So you've got to be working or volunteering or doing something that challenges you, that is meaningful, that is worthwhile, that uses your passions and skills in service to others. So it's your work bucket, your career, or your volunteering. You've got to have something there. The second thing that you need in your life is loving, supportive relationships. So if you get to the end of your life and you look back on your life, most people regret not having meaningful relationships. They've put everything into work, and they put into work that really wasn't that meaningful to them. So those are big regrets. They want to do work that's meaningful, that's rewarding, that's using their talents, their strengths in service to others, and they want to have deep, meaningful relationships. So the big three, I said, well, what's the third aspect of that? Well, in order for you to show up as the best version of yourself in work and in love, you've got to have great energy. So we really need to focus on dialing up the quality and the quantity of energy that we bring to our work and to our love. And so that's the big three. And that made all the difference in the world for me. Because before, I was trying to essentially do all the wheels all at once, the wheel of life activity. I was trying to move them all up all at the same time. And that just wasn't getting me anywhere because I was just making little tiny progress in each of them. But when I focused in on energy, work, and love, then I started to see things really change for myself because I narrowed my focus, knowing and trusting that a life lived well really is about contribution and service and about deep, meaningful, loving relationships and zesty, being healthy and fit for as long as you can and bringing a high quality and quantity of energy to everything that you do. So that's the big three. That's another activity to consider. The next activity then is the CEO of you. So think about how any business is run. Think about how any business is run. They have a vision. They're purpose-driven, right? They've got a vision. So what's your vision? That's all we're going to do. We're going to take exactly the same way you would build a business, and you're going to apply it to building a great life. So what's your vision? What are your values? Everything we do, we want to live in integrity with those values. So your vision, your values, which then trickle down to your mission. What's your mission that lines up with your values, that lines up with your vision? And then what are your specific goals? These might be your KPIs, your key performance indicators. What are your specific goals then for the quarter? Because your vision isn't meant to be something that's accomplished now. It's like a lifetime vision, right? So it's the vision of 25 years from now. And what are the values that you're going to adhere to? And the quality of life you want to have is based on the values, how you're going to go about doing it. What's your mission? And what is your specific goals then quarter by quarter? And if you think about any great company, they're going to be having meetings with their shareholders regularly. They're going to be checking in quarterly and weekly and monthly about the mission, the goals, the values, and the vision. Are we making progress? Are we living in integrity with it? They're doing that all the time. But how often do you schedule meetings with yourself to take stock on your vision, your values, your missions, your goals? How often are you doing that? If the best organizations in the world do it at least annually and more often than not quarterly, and then even that, the managers are expected to do it with their teams weekly and the individuals on their team daily, lining up how every single action you take helps contribute to the vision of the organization. That's how we want to live our life, consciously, living into that vision that it's got us fired up, that we're excited about. So become the CEO of you is another activity to consider. Again, these can be searched on the Google. Goal setting to now. One of my favorite ways to go about doing this. This comes from the book called The One Thing. The One Thing was written by Gary Keller, who is a real estate mogul. He's in charge of Keller Williams. So goal setting to now, he essentially takes the wheel of life and he says, okay, what's my someday goal in my finances? He starts there. And he says, okay, then based on my someday goal in finances, what is my 5-year goal in finances that lines up with my someday goals? And then we say, okay, now I know what my 5-year goals that line up are with my someday goals. What's my 1-year goal that lines up with my 5-year goals that lines up with my someday goals? Now I've got my 1-year goal. I think he throws a 3-year in there too. So then I'm down to my 1-year goal. Okay, based on my 1-year goal that lines up with my 3 and my 5 and my someday goal, what is my quarterly goal? So what do I want to do over the next 90 days? Then I dial that back now even further, which is why it's called goal setting to now. So based on my quarterly goals that line up with my 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, someday goals, what do I need to do this month? What do I want to accomplish over the next 4 weeks? I dial that back. Based on what I want to accomplish over the next 4 weeks, what do I need to get done this week? And based on that, what do I need to get done this week for my financial goals that line up with my monthly, quarterly, annually, 3 year, 5 year, someday goals? What do I need to do today? And then based on that, what do I need to do today? What's the one thing I could be doing such by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary? What do I need to do right now in this moment? That's the goal setting to now. And you can do that in your finances. You can do that with your career. You can do that in your marriage. You can do that with your health and fitness. For example, with your health and fitness, it's like, okay, based on my, quarterly, I want to get stronger this quarter. So that means right now I'm going to eat some lean protein, right? Or I'm going to go do that it's going to be a, strength building day for my legs, right? So what am I going to do right now that lines up with that quarterly, annual, 3, 5, and someday goals? So goal setting to now is another great way to decide what you're going to work on that you want to persevere around. And then the one question that has changed my life, I want to invite you to consider this question. And this goes back to any goal can be a worthy, noble goal. And the question is this: Lori, what's something you secretly want that feels a little selfish and you're a little bit embarrassed to say out loud? I want to ask you that right now as you're listening. What's something you secretly want that you feel maybe a little bit selfish, maybe a little bit embarrassed to say it out loud? I want you to consider maybe that's the goal you should go for. Maybe that's the goal you should go for. Because when you think about getting that lake house, if that's what comes to mind, feels a little selfish, a little embarrassing, being famous, doing a certain thing, who will you need to become in order to accomplish that thing? What kind of fears will you need to face in order to create that thing in your life? And if you were to achieve that thing, what would it do for you? Like, would you feel brighter and lighter and happier? If the answer is yes, then it's a noble goal. It's worth pursuing. If it makes you feel excited and a little giddy, like a little kid, then that might just be the right next goal for you. And that question has changed my life, because I used to base most of my goals on what other people might think of me. And when I started to get rid of what people will think of me and go with what really lights me up, everything changed. So just something to think about there. 6 activities to consider. Each of these you can search on the Google and probably get some support with. Goal setting to now, you're going to want to check out the one thing. All the other ones, though, are pretty much out there on the internet. And so in this video, we talked about the 4 steps, once again, to building the habit of perseverance. Decide, make a plan, close off your mind, build your team. And today we're focused specifically on step 1. How do you decide on a goal? Why are goals important? Why do they matter? And I gave you 5 things to think about with those. The Bible, science, and life all line up. We need goals. There's no hope without goals. All goals are not created equal, but any goal can be a worthy, noble goal. We want to create Goldilocks goals that, and then we can think about goals that come in different shapes and sizes. We got all kinds here, from short-term to long-term goals, specific general goals, quantity goals versus quality goals. One I didn't mention today is macro versus micro. Macro, kind of big picture. Micro is right now, moment-to-moment decision goals. So those are some things to think about with goals. And then 6 activities to consider. Your best possible selves, the wheel of life, the big 3, the CEO of you, goal setting to now, one question that has changed my life. So I hope that gave you some good food for thought around goal setting. Like I said before, goal setting is a class in and of itself. You can spend an entire weekend, an entire week, an entire month, an entire year getting better at choosing good goals for yourself and building the habit to persevere on those big goals. But goals is a huge concept, and we just touched the surface in this 35-minute video. So what was your favorite idea? Which activity are you excited to try out for yourself? Have you already decided? What's the thing you want to persevere on? If you have, awesome. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Much love. Have a great day. See you again soon. Bye for now.